Am I the a-hole for telling my kids I am not okay with calling their stepmom mom? 2 years ago, my husband left me for my best friend after 20 years of marriage, and they got married. As much as I loved my husband, his affair wasn't a surprise. My mother-in-law told me in our wedding day that men like him don't stay loyal to women like me. She was right. What hurt the most was the betrayal from my best friend. I loved this woman and considered her a sister. Since then, I have gone no contact from both of them. Any communication regarding the kids goes through a third party. If they are at an event, I don't go there. My kids know this and have respected this boundary. They know not to mention them to me, and we celebrate birthdays separately. The kids are now 16 female, 17 male, 17 female, 18 female, and 21 male. Recently, when we were all at our house, 16 female asked me if I was okay with her calling her stepmom mom. She said since she will have a half-sibling soon, this will make the half-sibling not confused and part of the family. I told her that no, I am not okay with that woman being called mom, but she could call her that if she wanted to. Just because I don't like it doesn't mean she doesn't have to do it. I won't be mad at her if she calls her mom. The other kids started getting mad at her, but I shut them down. My mother-in-law called me screaming, saying I'm alienating the stepmom, and I should have told 16 female that I'm okay with it. I have an honest policy with my kids. I'm always open and honest with them. Just because I do not personally like something they do, doesn't mean I don't let them do it. For example, 17 male has a lot of piercings I personally do not like, but that doesn't mean I forbid him from having them. Now for the top comments before the little update. Not stay home. At 16, the kid should be able to understand why you would not be okay with that. Besides, I don't see how the half-sibling would be confused if everything is explained to them like any other blended family. Sounds like someone whispered in your kid's ear about calling the mistress mom thing, because I don't think a 16-year-old would think about it on their own. I would like to say that my former best friend is better than that, but then again, she also slept with my husband after 15 years of friendship, so maybe I don't know her that well. It may not be the mistress. It could be your ex or your ex's mother, since she seems so angry about it. Your ex's mother. Possible. She loves her new daughter-in-law. No one was happier in the divorce than her, because she now finally has a daughter-in-law for her class, rather than one below it. You handled that very maturely and reasonably. Your ex-mother-in-law is just an a-hole, and don't listen to her. I think that you are being graceful in the face of great pain and sacrifice. You sound like an excellent mother. I'm sorry you're going through this. I'd suggest adding your mother-in-law to your no-contact list as well, since it looks like she's not a rational person. Can I call her mom and are you okay with me calling her mom are two very different questions. The first one, the answer can be controversial. If you had said no, then she could have argued with you. You said yes. No arguing there. The second one, she is asking you about a feeling. You can't control a feeling. She can't be mad because you feel things. What makes a difference between a good and a bad person is not the feeling they have, but what they do with the feeling. You are not a bad person for having a feeling, and you were definitely a good person for having a bad feeling, but choosing to handle it the hard way. Not the whole. Now for the little update. I just went up to my daughter's room. I gently asked her why she gave mother-in-law my number. She said because grandma asked her. I asked if it was her idea to call stepmom mom. She said yes. I told her she is more than allowed to call her mom. It doesn't matter how I feel about it. I also told her that I went no contact with her grandmother for a reason, and she isn't allowed to give my number out to people I don't talk to. She apologized. Also to the people asking about the stepmom. She was my best friend for 15 years and the kids considered her an aunt. When the affair happened, the oldest kid stopped talking to her, but the youngest was very attached to her still. Maybe that's why she feels comfortable with calling her mom. Either way, it's her choice. I would also like to address a few things. To those of you accusing me of blaming the stepmom and not my husband for the affair, I blame both. I got betrayed by two people. One a husband and the other a sister. A betrayal from a sister hits just as hard as a betrayal from a husband. And secondly, some of you have been commenting on why my daughter is so attached to the stepmom. My youngest is a very loving person. Her stepmom has been in her life since she was 1 year old. Back then she was auntie, but after the affair, all my other children turned away from her. But it wasn't so easy for my youngest. She still cares for her. My boundary is still in place. I'm no contact with the ex-mother-in-law and ex-best friend. I will be logging off now. Have a great day. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not contributing to my family's expenses related to my wedding? My fiancé, 26 female, and I, 28 male, are getting married at a destination wedding next summer. The destination is special to my fiancé as she vacationed there with her family a couple times when she was younger, and it holds sentimental value to her. I was open to the idea since I am pretty indifferent when it comes to the wedding planning, and this seemed like an easy way to check a lot of boxes at once, plus the added bonus of my fiancé getting a wedding she dreamed about. Of course, the downfall of a destination wedding is that people might not be able to attend. We expected this and had a lot of conversations about making sure we don't take anything personally if people can't attend, and we're very clear to the people we asked to be in our wedding party about the cost and expectations. There were a couple of friends they asked to be groomsmen that had to decline due to them having young kids, and I totally get that and respect it. I'm not an idiot. My wedding is not more important than your kids to you. This hasn't been as much of a problem with my fiancé's side, as her family comes from money, and destination weddings are kind of the norm for them. In the time we've dated, I think 4 to 5 of her cousins have had destination weddings, but we only attended one of them, and there was no fuss on anyone's part about the ones we didn't go to. My family, however, does not come from money. When I told my parents and siblings about our wedding plans, they all kind of freaked out about not being able to afford it. I get it, my siblings have kids and expenses too. So I told them I understand if it's not something they are able to afford, and while I would love for them to be there, I won't hold it against them if they can't make it work. My parents have guilted me over it a little bit, but have assured me they will be attending. However, they told me that we should all pool some money together, and by all they mean mostly me, to make sure all my siblings and their families can attend. I told them there is pretty much no way I can do that. My 2 sisters got wind of this idea, probably from my mom, and they said that the only way they can attend is if I help pay for at least half of their trips for their whole families, kids included. I kind of laughed at that and told them there is no way I will do that. They said that since I am the one who decided to have a destination wedding, and that it is my responsibility to make sure my family can all attend. I told them that I love them and would love to have them at my wedding, but I am not funding vacations for their entire family. I said the only way I would even consider it would be if it was just them and their spouses, no kids. They said that excluding their kids was not acceptable. They told me that I have turned into a stuck-up a-hole since I got engaged, and I am rubbing my fiancé's money in their faces. They accused me of having a destination wedding on purpose to rub it in their faces that they can't afford something like it. The thing is, you're throwing a wedding that you know your family can't attend financially, but your wife's can. You therefore know that this will be a wedding for your wife's family, not yours. You therefore know that this is symbolic of you choosing and entering a lifestyle in which money divides you from your former family. If your family's presence in your life isn't important for your wedding, there's every reason to believe it won't be important for other events. Your family understands all this, just like you do. You're pretending it's just one day and it's no big deal if they miss it. Like, you won't be offended. Like, your feelings won't be hurt. But that's your way of deflecting the point. It hurts them to watch you choose money over their participation in your life. It hurts them to be excluded from the wedding of their close loved one. You're the a-hole. Take responsibility for leaving your family out of your wedding. It hurts them to watch you choose money over their participation in your life. It hurts them to be excluded from the wedding of their close loved one. Meh, they don't really show much interest in my life anyway. Heck, when my sisters FaceTimed me to complain, it was the first time either of them had taken the time to call me in almost 18 months. I am 10 years younger than my older sister and 8 years younger than the other. I have been an afterthought in their lives ever since they started having kids. I don't hold it against them. I get it. Their families are the most important things in their lives. I make sure to send cards for each of their kids on every birthday, gifts for every kid at Christmas. I don't even get a text from them on my birthday. Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm kidding myself into thinking I actually want them there. And this is just my subconscious reminding me that they don't give a f about me unless they think they can get something out of it. But for them to act like they actually care about my important life events kind of makes me laugh now that I think about it. Based on this, not a hole. You're not close and that sucks. But you are doing your due diligence in the relationship and they aren't. The age gap can make sibling relationships more complicated. Everyone sucks here. Yeah, sure, it's your wedding. No, you don't need to pay for anyone to attend. But saying you'd love for them to come is deeply disingenuous when you've set this up, or allowed it to be set up, rather, in a way you know only works for your fiancé and her family. And while I'm not recommending you throw her under the bus, I think you need to stop treating your family like idiots. and just acknowledge you don't actually care whether they're there or not. It's Opie's wedding and they can have it where they damn well please. It's not treating people like idiots or disingenuous to say we would love for you to come but we understand why you might not be able to. Other people's finances aren't their problem and shouldn't dictate their choices. Next story. Am I the a-hole? I went with my friend to a restaurant that was originally reserved for me and my wife. Yesterday was my birthday. My 30 male wife, 28 female and I had made reservations at this really nice Korean barbecue restaurant for dinner. My wife is also 4 months pregnant. However, her friend wanted to hang out with her and had called her the night before my birthday. My wife said that this was a childhood friend of hers and that she really wanted to spend time with her. I reminded her that it's my birthday, but she just dismissed it, saying my birthday comes every year, but her friend will be leaving for Germany in a few weeks. I told her that she could go after my birthday as well, but she did not listen and just went to a sleepover at her friend's place. I got really mad at her, but instead of waiting for her to return home to talk things out, I asked my friend if he would like to hang out with me. He was fine with it, so we spent the day fishing, grilling, hiking, and went to the Korean barbecue for dinner. When she came home after spending time with her friend, she apologized to me, saying it was an unavoidable circumstance. I told her that it wasn't a problem, and that I spent the day with my best friend. She got mad that I would take him to the restaurant that we had booked for ourselves. I said that it was originally for us, but since she prioritized her friend over me, I took the person who prioritized me on my birthday. She said that I'm controlling and that I shouldn't be deciding who she spends time with. Now she's neither talking to me nor coming out of the room. I think I went too far by telling her whom she should be spending time with. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. But you didn't tell her she shouldn't spend time with her friend? You only asked that she not do it on that specific day. What is she talking about? Your wife is playing the victim here. She seems really immature and rude. Not the a-hole. I know. It's funny because she also stated that her friend is leaving in a few weeks, but his birthday is one day. Normal Darvo crap. Damn. Came back to check on this because of the notification. Didn't really know what Darvo was. Googled it and damn. That is freaking Darvo crap. Legit, she is playing victim now to make Opie feel guilty. And it worked. Opie had to write this because he most likely thought he was the a-hole. Seems to me she's actually the one being controlling. She doesn't prioritize you on your birthday, but then wants to say you shouldn't continue with your plans with your friend in her place? She would have preferred you sitting at home waiting for her on your birthday. That's really not very nice. Edited Dwed. And correct me if I'm wrong, but this was a milestone birthday? That's not right. Yep, it was my 30th birthday. That's why the fancy restaurant, or we usually stuff ourselves at AC's. Oh wow. Yeah, I think that was a really selfish decision on her part, and you were remarkably cool about it, considering it must have hurt some. So not fair to get mad at you for celebrating with someone who chose to be there for you. I'm confused. What did she expect you to do? Sit at home and cry? Your wife is the a-hole. She didn't need to visit her friend that day. She didn't need to stay out all night and come in the next morning. That's weird. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to return the $600 gift I bought for Mom for Christmas? To start, I want to mention that unlike my wife, I have a very good relationship with Mom. And because my siblings can always afford pricey gifts for Mom this year, I decided to gift her something nice and expensive for once on Christmas. Though I'm currently unemployed, but I work for the past few months, and my wife and I have a joint account. The problem began when my wife found out I purchased a $600 necklace for my mom to gift her on Christmas using our joint account. She went off on me, saying I should have told her and shouldn't have taken money from our joint account that she uses to pay the bills and rent, especially now that we're struggling. I asked why should I tell her since it's for us both, but she reminded me that despite that being true, 1, I no longer work, and 2, $600 is a lot and I should have consulted her. But the reasons I didn't are 1, I feel that it's my money too and I can make purchases using our joint account, and 2, I know if I told my wife she'd refuse to let me buy the gift solely because she hates my mom. She yelled at me saying that it's her hard-earned money I threw away and needed to return the necklace. But I refused because Mom already knows about it. She responded that this is no longer our joint account since I no longer earn money, and that if I want to gift Mom expensive items, then I needed to earn money. She insisted I return it, but I said no, and it escalated to me calling her bitter and controlling, after she pointed out I never got her anything in this price range. She's insisting I return it and at least get a cheaper one, but I'm done being the one with the least expensive/valuable gifts to gift in the family. She's making this her hill to die on. Am I the a-hole? You're the a-hole. Money shared is exactly that. Shared. You're in a partnership. You can't just spend the shared money willy-nilly. And she has every right to be upset if you're using the money you both share to buy extravagant gifts for other people without talking it through first. My rule of thumb is always, if it's more than $100, discuss it. Shared finances is not an ask for forgiveness, not permission situation. This exactly. I never spent more than $100 without consulting my wife. Because of tight bills, I lowered my threshold to $20 unless it is no necessity. Food, gas, oil change. You're unemployed and blew what I take home in a week? Oh yeah, you're the a-hole. Oh, told mom before Christmas so you couldn't return it. Double a-hole. Doing it intentionally behind your wife's back because you didn't even need to talk to her to know it was wrong? You planning on moving in with your mother? Probably should. You need a new place to sleep. This was a triple a-hole move. You said what I was thinking in perfect summary. You should start packing now. It is absolutely unreasonable for someone in your financial situation, having no income, to be making unnecessary $600 purchases from your joint account without agreement from your wife. No parent wants their unemployed adult son buying them a $600 necklace for Christmas. He says she already knows about the necklace though, which may shed some light on why she and the wife don't get along. What sort of person finds out their unemployed son just spent $600 in jewelry? It is like, great, thanks, looking forward to it. Sounds like he and his mother deserve each other. Parents told my brother that he could take my house and I could just live in a camper in the backyard because I'm single and he has a wife and kids. Part 1. I'm a single man in my early 30s. I've got a brother who's 29 and he's already got 4 kids now. He had his first at 22 and the second followed a year later. Then the third 2 years after that, and the fourth is most recently born a couple months ago. His wife, my sister-in-law, and I did not get along, as she always likes to try and get a rise out of me by acting superior, then turns into an extreme self-victimizing drama queen if I retaliated against her in any way. She can cry in an instant, and can put on an extremely convincing show to get sympathy from just about anyone. My parents and brother absolutely adore her though, even if they know exactly how she really is and just don't care. She's very good looking, I'll give her that, but she's so awful that I could never be attracted to her. She also refuses to get any sort of job, even though she has a college degree, and my mother willingly helps with the kids all day. So, their finances are entirely dependent on my brother. This also means they can't afford to live anywhere but my parents' house, and privacy is a bit of an issue, with all of them under one roof in a 3-bedroom house that was built in the 60s. Growing up, my younger brother was also the obvious favorite. We're 3 years apart in age, but he developed a superiority complex because I was badly punished if I retaliated against his antics in any way back then. It was obvious my parents cared for him a lot more, because he got the lion's share of everything, unless people called them out on it. Which did happen a fair bit by other members of family, which is why my parents packed us all up and moved us about 150 miles away from them, so they generally would only see us on holidays since it was a 3-hour drive. My brother got physical towards me on a number of occasions, flirted relentlessly with my first girlfriend to the point she broke up with me, and laughed at any misfortune I had. And my parents just told me to suck it up whenever I was upset about it. I only got equal treatment when my parents wanted to keep up appearances. I admit it was rather funny to see the looks on their faces whenever they had to treat me equal to my brother on birthdays and Christmas because other people were present. We had relatives that were very nosy and loved gossiping drama. So my parents did their best to hide what was really going on and threatened to take all my stuff away if I didn't keep my mouth shut. If anything, it just made my parents celebrate more when I turned 18 and moved out, because it meant they no longer had to provide for me. I wasn't even done with high school yet when I moved out, but couch surfing was far better than living with them. I was low contact ever since leaving home. They didn't even show up for my high school graduation, but I really didn't care. From that point on, I would usually only see my parents and brother on holidays like the rest of the family. The start of 2020 pandemic was not kind to me. I lost my job and couldn't renew the lease on the condo because my roommate also lost his job, and neither of us could afford to place on unemployment money. It was a rented 2-bedroom condo that I really loved. As the lease was ending, my roommates left early to move back in with relatives, and I had to sell nearly all of my stuff because I was soon going to be homeless if I didn't downsize to an extreme. I really shouldn't have rented a place that was so expensive, but I liked living the high life. Until that, life wasn't kind to me, and I realized I should have been living somewhere far cheaper so I could have saved more money to fall back on. But I had a plan. I own a truck simply for the fact that I've always loved trucks. So, I found a $1,000 camper in good shape and put it on my truck just so I could live out of it for a while. It was supposed to be temporary, but I ended up living out of it far longer than I ever thought. I originally was hoping to be able to live out of the camper at my parents' house, where my brother and his family still reside as well. But when I asked my parents to let me stay for a while, they told me they had a full house and didn't want me there. Plus, we hadn't exactly gotten along in the past decade. They said they'd only agree to let me park my camper there if I paid them basically what it would cost to rent an apartment in my area. That was way too much just to park my camper. I was jobless and trying to save as much of my unemployment money as I could till I could find a new job. I may as well be living in an apartment with that rent price they were asking. My parents called my camper an eyesore and told me to take a hike since we couldn't come to an agreement. And sister-in-law thought it was absolutely hilarious I had to live in a camper. My brother joined her in pointing at and mocking me while calling me a homeless bum. So, I parked my truck/camper in the store parking lot to sleep on the first night that I had nowhere else to go. I felt scared out of my mind that someone might try to break in. Suffice to say, I didn't sleep well that night. There was nowhere else I could go, as any other relatives that owned houses were fairly far away and all my friends were all apartment people. And I was pretty attached to my area as well, so I didn't want to just leave. I'd also had my mail forwarded to a friend's apartment. It was the only way I could still get my mail anymore. Finding a stable place to park was pretty difficult. I went looking around to try and find a job similar to my old one. It took months of living the nomadic camper life. In that time, I had to deal with a lot. Everything from beggars and drug addicts to people demanding I leave because my camper was an eyesore. At one point, someone that told me to move claimed to be with an HOA. I wasn't even parked on a street with houses. And when I questioned, "What HOA?" they got incredibly belligerent and threatened me. So I moved my camper anyway just to avoid a trouble. In order to have a steady supply of electricity, I learned to use a long extension cord to plug in anywhere I could to recharge my camper batteries. This meant sneaking around and plugging it into an outside outlet of a random building while parked on a street. I know that's a crummy thing to do, but I had to keep my batteries charged so my refrigerator would stay cold. I had a small solar power bank for recharging my phone, but I didn't have anything like a generator. And generators are noisy and required fuel anyway, so I did what I had to do. After months of living like that, I finally managed to get a new job. I had to move to the neighboring city to find a job that didn't involve retail. I worked retail while in college and promised myself never again, though I was nearly ready to break that promise. I was still getting unemployment money, but I had no stable place to live while receiving it. And I didn't want to still be jobless when it ran out. Plus, I was bored out of my mind. I had little else to do but read, watch movies on a small portable DVD player, use my phone or laptop, and keep note of where I could park and what local public bathrooms I could use. I kind of envy that the Japanese have public bathhouses. We could really use stuff like that over here. When I finally landed a new job, I practically lived in the back lots of the building by the warehouse and old employee parking spaces literally no one else seemed to bother using, because they were so far in the back that the area was borderline forgotten. My boss/company owner actually liked this arrangement because I was willingly available to take any shift I could get, so long as I had enough sleep. He even let me take the camper off my truck and set it up in one of the spaces so I could drive around without it. Not exactly sure if this was legal, but no one bothered us about it. The entire time I lived back there, I didn't have to deal with many trespassers. There were a few, but the security guards escorted them out. I was pretty much on call almost all the time when they needed me, and was working virtually every day of the week. My boss let me plug my camper into the building for power and water, and I paid a small amount of rent by working for free on Sundays, when no one else was in the office but the janitor and security guard. Beyond that, I usually had to shower at a friend's apartment or at my local gym as the camper didn't have a shower in it, and only a portable toilet. And I didn't want to fill it because emptying it is a nasty chore. So I used other bathrooms as often as I could. I had a key to the warehouse and could go in to use the bathroom there at any hour. I was even on a first-name basis with a night security guard who's since become one of my closest friends. The camper was easy to heat in the winter with a small electric heater. Summers were not fun though. The camper didn't have AC, so I had to get a used portable air conditioner just to make it bearable. I made a lot of overtime pay, and hands-on learned some new skills from other employees. Eventually, midway into this year, I landed a better position in the company as a supervisor, and started making a better salary than my old job. That's when I decided I wanted a house. The scare I'd gotten from losing my condo made me realize I needed something much more stable for the long term. I looked around for something close to my work, and just 2 miles away found a 3-bedroom manufactured home in a small property. But I managed to get it for $10,000 less than the asking price somehow. I used nearly my entire savings for a down payment and got approved for a home loan. I finally didn't have to live in a camper anymore. There was enough space for me to back my truck in behind the house, to take the camper off to set it up in the backyard. So, I put it there as its own little building just in case I want to use it again. When I was fully settled in the house, I was dumb enough to brag about it on my book of faces. My family saw the post, and that's where this crap really starts. After a few weeks, my parents and brother along with his family came to visit completely unannounced to have a tour of my home. I didn't even give them my address. So how they found out where I live, I still don't know. None of my friends have fessed up, and no prior family members visited me before that. So I wonder if they stalked me at work and followed me home or something. It really wouldn't surprise me. Once I opened the door, they practically all shoved their way in like rambunctious tourists, then just started making themselves at home. They all kept poking around, and sister-in-law had this creepy smirk that she was repeatedly flashing me. And it was only later that I figured out why. And it made me madder than a bull on steroids that just got stung by a hornet. My parents were constantly talking about how I've got so much extra space now, and it's too much for someone like me who has no wife or kids. Sure, not now, but maybe someday. And my brother kept remarking about how there was more space than our parents' house, and my house was closer to his job too. Red flags all around, I know. Eventually, my brother asked me to speak privately. Everyone else suddenly left the room and piled out onto the front porch. That's what finally made me realize they'd planned something. My brother, who we'll call Dan, said the house was too much for me alone, that I should let him move in with his family because his wife is pregnant with kid number 4. And my house is much closer to his job. He pointed out that I already have the camper, so I could just live in that outside while they live in the main house. And I'd like to point out that Dan never once spoke of offering rent. Mind you, he's got a good job. He also started talking about how there would be changes and even curfews, and that I couldn't just walk in at any time without prior notice. If it weren't my brother, I think the person I was talking to had lost their mind. But Dan lost his marbles long ago thanks to our parents treating him like he was the center of the world. I tried to speak, but he kept talking over me as if I had no say in the matter. There was no way in hell I'd rent my house nor parts of my house to him. Other people maybe, just so I can pay the mortgage off more easily. But certainly not him, nor his nasty wife. I've heard of this exact kind of situation in videos online many times, and never once did I think I'd actually live it because I thought it so ludicrous. But my parents, brother and sister-in-law do all fit the bill for a bunch of narcissistic entitled crazies. So, I picked up my phone and set it to start recording, then just held onto it. Dan didn't even seem to care or notice that I'd done this, and just sat there with his arms waving around while talking about all the reasons of why he needed my house. Then went from saying that to acting like it was a done deal, and trying to reach out his hand to shake mine. That's when I finally showed my backbone and said, "Hell no." And I said it loud enough that Dan stumbled backward for a second. I'd rarely ever raised my voice to him on that level, because I was punished by our parents whenever I did. But this was my house, not theirs. My spine can be as shiny as it wants here. I stood up and then told him that my house was not up for grabs. And acting like I let him move in just because they want it won't make it happen. I bought my house for me. It is not my fault he keeps having more kids, and he has to keep living with our parents because he can't afford to move out. Dan got as physically close to me as he could without actually touching me and said that I didn't deserve the house, and he needed a better place for his family to live. I laughed back in his face and said that was total BS because I worked hard to be able to buy my house. Of course I deserved it. Dan started yelling that I have no wife or kids and I don't need all the space, so I may as well give it to him. I said I'm not giving him anything, and he never even offered to pay me rent. If I let him move in, I'd still be covering the entire mortgage on my own house without even being able to live in my own house. Then Dan told me that he shouldn't have to pay rent because his family comes first, and our parents said I was going to do this and that I will. I yelled as if their word was law or something, then told Dan that they did not have the right nor power to give my house to him. Then right on cue, my parents and sister-in-law barged back in through the front door and surrounded me to try and force me to agree. There was a lot of fighting, but to sum it up from this point on, I heard a line, "Just do it for Dan," way more times than I can remember. In the fight, I told them all they don't have a say in my life or my house and to get out before I called the cops. Sister-in-law screamed the loudest at me about how she was pregnant again and I can't do this to her. I said I did nothing to her. She just assumed she could take and take from me, like I would just allow it. I had no obligation to her or her family. Then, I called her a stuck-up witch who never had any respect for me. So I don't care what she thinks or how many kids she has. I have no sympathy for her. She won't be living in my house. Well, that made her angry enough to attack me. She got in one good hit on my face and tried to do more, but my brother held her back kicking and screaming. She kept demanding he let her go so she could scratch my eyes out. The phone I was holding recorded pretty much everything. So I held it up and said I was going to call the police if they didn't leave right away. My parents told Dan they were leaving. Then my mother said that I had a week to come to my senses. I told her I won't be, and to not come back. Then I told sister-in-law that my phone recorded everything, and if she tries anything, I'll press charges for assault. She screamed at me and then stormed out loudly crying with her face in her hands. My mother was the last one out the door and said that I better do this for Dad and sister-in-law. I responded by telling her I won't be. Now for the comments. I would get an order of protection against the sister-in-law. I would also invest in security cameras and upgrade the locks. Maybe even invest in a big dog to act as guard dog for the property. That way, when they return, you have proof of trespassing. File a police report anyway. Let the cops deal with her. Do not get a guard dog. With people as unstable as Opie's family, they're just as likely to kill the dog by feeding it poisoned meat or shoot it and claim self-defense for a poor pregnant woman. Okay, homie, I read it all and goddamn. Here's my 2 cents. 1. Go no contact with the lunatics, no matter what. 2. Do them solid and send that recording to the rest of your family. That way, you can go to the extended family holidays without having those crazies around. 3. Don't be sad about it. It ain't your fault that your brother can't finish in your sister-in-law when he has a big enough space. And definitely not your fault because she refuses to work when your parents already babysit the kids. 4. Keep your insanely strong mental going. You have a winner's attitude, and you continue to win in life no matter what it throws at you. 5. If they ever do this again, police. You already have evidence, so just go for it. You can also consider having cameras around your property just for the property's safety. 6. Get yourself a family of your own. You deserve it. And once that's settled, send some mails asking your parents when will they move in the trailer to make room for your kids. And also let them know the rent they must pay to use your trailer. 7. If sister-in-law tries that again and you catch a second attack on camera, CPS may want to look at how stable she is to be allowed to raise kids. Tell your boss too, so that if they turn up at your job trying to cause trouble, he's already aware of what's going on. Getting a lawyer to send a cease and desist might scare them off for a bit too. Am I the a-hole for refusing to help my siblings with our mother's funeral plans and for telling them I do not want to be named in her obituary? My mother died 2 days ago. My siblings were all with her when she died. I was not. She was a bully to me and hated my guts for as long as I can remember. Not sure if it was the fact that I was the kid who looked so much like Dad, the fact she was young when she got pregnant with me and resented me for it, or whether I was just unlucky. But she gave me a horrific childhood. And my dad died when we were all young, so I was left to watch her dote on my siblings and treat me like trash. I got to hear all the time that I ruined her life, that she wished she had aborted me, that she dreamed of me dying and getting the relief knowing she'd never have to see me again. I ended up staying with friends from the age of 15, and I hadn't seen her since my 20th birthday, when she showed up with my siblings and told me she wanted to puke just looking at me. I never told her I was gay, never introduced her to my partner or my children. When my siblings called to tell me she was dying, I was so happy. Knowing she's gone, knowing that the woman who hated me for reasons out of my control, who made sure I know how much she never wanted me, filled me with such a feeling of relief. But of course, my siblings are heartbroken. They wanted me to be involved. I told them no way, no how. I said she was a great mother to them and that was fine. But she was evil to me. She was evil and made my childhood hell. And I was not a grieving child and was not spending a single second giving her a nice send-off or spending a single cent on it either. They got mad. Told me it should be split between all of us. They had already planned her obituary and told me how bad I would look if I don't help plan or don't show up. So I told them to get my name off the obituary because the woman they described was not my mother. We argued. They told me I was behaving just as badly as her by taking it out on them when they did nothing wrong. I told them I just wanted them to leave me out of it. I told them to pretend we're half siblings and I have a different mother out there if it helps. They told me I could at least do it for them and to think about how hard this has been for them. The fighting just keeps on going and it actually delayed the funeral planning since they spent more time trying to convince me than doing any planning. They keep asking for my opinion, etc., trying to draw me in, then get mad and tell me I am treating them badly. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Your siblings can't force you to be involved. Your experience of her as your mother is clearly very different to theirs. Stand firm. And tell them again that you are not interested. You will not be going and you will not be contributing financially. Tell them you are not going to be discussing this subject again. Or you could agree to be in the obituary, so long as the whole thing begins with the line, "Ding dong, the witch is dead." That should make them back off. Not the a-hole. I suspect that they really want to split the cost of the funeral and this is why they are pressuring you. Not the a-hole. That said, you may want to be slightly involved for the sake of your relationship with your siblings. As you suggested, you can think of them as half-siblings with a different mom. If your half-siblings just lost their mom, how would you react? Would you be consoling? Would you consider chipping in if they were short on money? Would you want to be around for those half-siblings even though they're grieving a stranger to you? If the answer is yes, then consider helping out. If the answer is no, then stay firm. I would, assuming the person wasn't evil to me, but I hate the idea of helping give her a nice send-off. That's where the issue is. I'd love to just leave her to rot and end up forgotten. Next story. Am I the a-hole for stealing my sister's baby? My 29 little sister, female 21, we'll call her Jane, has a 14-month-old baby girl we'll call Sarah, whom I have had custody of since late June of 2022. Jane was divorcing her husband, jobless and homeless. I offered to take temporary guardianship of Sarah so she would be safe and cared for while Jane got her life together. At first, she turned me down. However, after Sarah was dropped off to our mom's house in dirty clothes and an old diaper by a stranger, while she was supposed to be under the care of her father, Jane agreed to give her to me and my wife. Now, we made clear that it would be temporary, and that Jane would still have full access and could get Sarah back whenever she felt ready. However, during the last 6 months, Jane has completely disappeared from Sarah's life. She doesn't ask about her. She doesn't make any effort to visit her. She doesn't ask us to bring her to visit. She has gotten a job and an unsafe place to stay, yet hasn't offered to take any financial responsibility, not even in the form of buying her gifts. She doesn't call to talk to her or see her. I spoke to Jane recently about all this, and her defense is that it's too emotionally hurtful to see Sarah because of how much it hurts and how much she misses her. Her other excuse is that she doesn't have a car or enough money to afford Ubers or diapers. I told her how absolutely ridiculous all that is. You don't need a car or money to call or text. We have always made clear we'd be willing to bring Sarah to her, and she spends a wasteful amount of money on food and vapes. Even after speaking to her about the things she should or could be doing, she still has made no changes. Because of this, my wife and I have decided to look into our legal options for adoption. Sarah has legally been abandoned, and we only need to keep her a little longer before the courts would allow termination of Jane and her husband's rights, as husband is even more missing in action than Jane is. Jane is livid about this, and is threatening all kinds of things, but has done nothing. Important information. After I offered originally, and before we actually got physical custody of Sarah, my wife and I attempted IVF and failed. We haven't told anyone about this, even family. However, I told Jane about this on day one, just so that there would be full honesty and so that none of this would seem sneaky if it were to come out later. Jane is bringing this up in a very hurtful way during all this, saying that I'm trying to steal her baby, since we can't have one of our own though we have one adopted son already. And this is very far from the truth. We are genuinely worried about the safety and well-being of Sarah if she were to go back to Jane, and the fact that Jane has essentially ghosted her baby. We feel we have every right to pursue permanent guardianship and adoption. So am I the a-hole? Edit, as several people have asked, why don't I take in my sister too? I don't have space or money for an adult. Sarah has a bed in our room, and we spend about $700 a month on her. There is no way we could cover an adult too. And even if we could, she's not someone I would live with. She is a very unclean person, doesn't shower nor wash her clothes, and hangs out with junkies and other questionable people. She lost her last living situation because her roommate was arrested for possession of meth at home. My wife and I have a 7-year-old son, and now Sarah to protect. Not the a-hole. Saying you stole Sarah is just Jane's way of abandoning her child while absolving herself of the guilt. I imagine the emotions there are pretty complicated. Stop worrying about Jane or looking bad and take comfort in the fact that you are doing what is best for Sarah. Anyone who believes Jane over you isn't worth having on your team anyway. Good luck. Not the a-hole. I am an adopted kid. My mom was an addict and knew she wouldn't get her life together. Look, wait until she can legally sever ties and don't bring this up again. Keep track of every time you reach out asking for assistance or offer to take the little baby to Sarah to her mother, and she refuses or misses an appointment. In California, it's 15 months to sever ties. Do not leave her unsupervised. Once you hit your state's threshold, lawyer up and make your case. If legally you have already temporary custody, a good portion of the battle is won. It's better to maintain the status quo and peacefully win the war than preempt an uphill battle in the family court. Bide your time, make your case open and close, and then formally adopt your daughter. I wish you all the best. Thank you. This is exactly the plan. Where does the rest of your family stand on this issue? Will they support you in this process? My mom is on the fence, but all my siblings are on my side. If your mother ever gives you pushback, you should remind her how Sarah was delivered back into her life, in dirty clothes and an old diaper. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not including my grandchildren's stepmother, step and half siblings in a family book? My youngest daughter died 9 years ago. She left behind a husband, Joe, and 3 children. My granddaughter is now 17 and my grandsons are now 16 and 15. Joe has since remarried to a lovely woman, Marie. Marie has a son and a daughter from a previous marriage, and she and Joe had a 5-year-old together. We get along fine with Marie and the other children, though I would not say we are very close, and we are definitely not like we were when my daughter was alive. That appears to now be a problem. You see, there is a book, a scrapbook type of book, where we add new members of the family to it, and the children born get little updates about them until they're grown. It was started by my grandmother, and continued by my mother and now me. It's not in the best condition, but we cherish it in the family, and those who are gone. When we look back, there's little memories in there to make us smile. Well, I do not have Marie or any of her children in this book, but they're aware of the book's existence from Joe and from my grandchildren. My oldest granddaughter and her partner became parents recently, and the book became a hot topic. And Marie was unhappy that my great-grandchild was included, but not her and her kids, because my great-grandchild is not related by blood. Joe told me the kids would love to have their whole family added to it, but then my grandchildren claimed something different, and it has become such a mess. Joe, Marie, and I eventually sat down to discuss it, and they told me they feel like Marie and the kids should be shown full acceptance, as part of the whole family and included. Marie also added that she should be added where Joe is, which is pages joined to my daughters, and I said that would never happen. She told me and her kids are just part of my family, but I told her she is not. I made it very clear she will never be my daughter. Joe told me it would set a good example for my grandchildren, for them to fully embrace Marie and the children, to drop the need for step, and see that they are all accepted just as much as he and they are. And I told him I could not do that. That I love him, that I love my grandchildren, but I do not love Marie or their other children. That I like them and they are good to have around, but it is not the same. Now they're angry, while my grandchildren are upset their dad wanted Marie and the other kids to be in the book. Marie called me a terrible grandmother in person, and that she had told her kids I was grandma, and now I had made their lives so much more terrible. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. This woman is basically a stranger to you. You don't owe it to her to be added in the family book. And your grandchildren understand this as well. The issue is Joe and Marie. I imagine the grandchildren are hurt and feel like she's trying to shove into their memories of their mother. Love that dad lied about his kids' feelings too. Glad grandma asked them directly. I don't understand these people who marry a widow/widower and can't accept they're a widow/widower. Like, just marry someone who doesn't have that baggage if you don't want to deal with it. Not the a-hole. This is a very clear-cut case of not the a-hole. Marie and her children are not related to you by blood. Marie is not married to your son or daughter. Marie is married to your late daughter's widowed husband. Joe only happens to be in the book because he was married to your daughter, who has since died. Joe, too, has no connection to you anymore. Since your daughter is no longer around to have a say, her children need to do that for her. And they have. They don't want Marie and her children in this book. Joe should be happy that you're continuing the tradition for your daughter's children. For his older children, his mother has died, and so should Marie. If Joe and Marie care so much, they should have started a new book years ago for their own blended family. But they cannot demand that extended family members do the same. This is yet another case of step-parents trying to force relationship with their stepchildren. And in this case, she's trying to replace the dead wife/mother. I don't understand why people can't understand that step-parent is an important relationship that can exist separately from children's love for their biological parents. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my adult sister that our family isn't cursed because our parents got divorced? My 37 female sister Jan, 41, can't get over our parents' divorce. Our parents have been divorced for over 20 years. Growing up, it was evident from a young age that their marriage was messed up. Dad even cheated a lot and never tried to hide it. When I was 6 and Jan was 9, Dad got Mom a dozen roses. Using context clues from things I remember at a time and confirmation from family, he was trying to apologize for an affair that got out of hand, which led to a huge fight. A few years later, Jan saw something romantic/cutesy on TV and asked why he never got Mom flowers. Dad said, "Roses are cursed and make your mom mad at me." Jan periodically brings up the "roses are cursed" BS every few years. I can't keep track of what upsets Jan. She also thinks dates that end in a 1 or 2 are cursed, blue trucks on the highway are cursed, types of food, and a bunch of other stuff nobody should be expected to remember. It was my mother's birthday this weekend, and her boyfriend hosted brunch. I wasn't thinking and got Mom an arrangement that included roses. Mom loved it and put it in the kitchen. Jan showed up later with her family, all smiles, until about an hour later when she went into the kitchen, let out a blood-curdling wail, and started crying that roses were cursed and made Mommy divorce Daddy. She then ranted that I cursed the family by bringing roses into the house on Mom's birthday. I snapped and said Mom and Dad got divorced because Dad was banging his way through our whole zip code in the 90s. Flowers aren't cursed. We are not cursed. That Dad made bad choices. And if she couldn't come to terms with that, then she needed to seek treatment because her behavior wasn't acceptable or normal. She looked at me like I had interrupted her Oscar speech. She and her husband then left and we tried to salvage the day. Mom's boyfriend thanked me, but Mom and our aunt say I'm the a-hole and that Jan is sensitive and delicate and I should have known better than to bring flowers. My husband doesn't care. He just won't go to family functions with Jan there now. Not the a-hole. Your sister clearly has a lot of unprocessed trauma from the divorce. This is absolutely not normal for a grown woman to react this way 20 plus years later. She needs serious therapy. I work with one of her former coworkers, and apparently she flipped out similarly when a colleague of hers was sent roses from her husband, which led to her being fired. This happened about 7 or 8 years ago. She was around 17 when your parents divorced? She sounds like a flipping toddler. This weird superstition is adversely affecting her family and career. You are totally right. She needs help. And what the heck does she think roses are going to do? Your parents are already divorced. Roses aren't going to make them get a second one. Not the a-hole. I was about 17. She was 21, I think. Definitely not the a-hole. Your sister is unhinged. She definitely needs therapy. She's in denial. And I think about your father and why they divorced. And it's made her the way she is. So when this outburst happened, it's almost like she was in a dissociated state and was speaking as if she was a child again. I think that's giving her a little too much leeway. She 100% knows what she's doing. Not the a-hole, but you and her didn't live the same past. This was a really tough one for me to learn. That my trauma from our childhood isn't the same as my brother's and sister's trauma, even if we lived through the same event. It seems like these curses are a way for her to control things that can be controlled and are overwhelming for her. I get it seems like she's victimizing herself, but maybe she doesn't have the same emotional strength, mental skills, or tools that you do. It's okay you snapped. Family is super frustrating, but try to remember something that scares you doesn't scare someone else. Something that makes you laugh doesn't make someone else laugh. Trauma and memories are the same way. I get that, but after a certain amount of time, 20 years perhaps, we don't have to continue to be held hostage by someone else's traumatic outbursts.